Hello, my name is Jorb, and I love gear. You've seen the title, you've seen the thumbnail. This is about the RE202 Space Echo. I'm totally not cut out for holding things in front of my face. This video is about the RE202 Space Echo, which is very, very exciting to me for a number of reasons. One, Boss is important to me. The first pedal I loved, the first piece of gear I loved, was the Blues Driver, the BD2. That leads me to love Boss and Roland, and in a lot of ways I consider their lineage of designing innovative effects back to the Space Echoes. And the RE201 specifically, that's one people talk about. I have one, I have a vintage one, and I think it's really exciting to see Boss doing a modern version of sounds from so early in their history. I will spend a good chunk of time in this video comparing them, the new and the old Space Echoes. I will use my SH-101. It's era appropriate, it is quintessentially Roland. I think it's the only thing I can choose. And fair warning, this video will be pretty detailed and pretty long. So if you don't feel like watching the entire thing, that's okay. I'm not hurt by that. Don't feel bad about skipping just to the parts you're interested in. Chapters are available below. And just so I don't forget, a lot of what I'm saying will be relevant to the RE2 as well, the smaller, less expensive compact pedal version of, I think it's the same sound generation. And very, very exciting for me, Boss sent this over for me to take a look at. I'm very excited. I'm very appreciative of the viewers who have validated me that I can demonstrate things and talk about them. And I'm appreciative to Boss for finding me and sending this out. But yes, they reached out to me, which is incredibly flattering. I don't know if it was because of this image or not, but right when the Space Echoes got announced, I put this in a community post and I tagged a bunch of people, just to see what happened. Whether that helped or not, I'm glad it did. If you look really closely at that photo, though, you'll see a certain t-shirt. What's that, Jorb? You have Space Echoes on a t-shirt? That's right. What sort of dork would want to buy that? Hopefully you. JorbLovesGear.com. I'm not built for this. JorbLovesGear.com. I sell merch. Did you guys know that? I'm kind of embarrassed that I do, but there are a few things there. The shirts that say funky, that's taken from the SH-101 manual. And then there's a bunch of film pictures of my actual gear, because I like t-shirts that are just a photo of a thing. So I made them of things that I like. And hopefully you like too. There you go. I hope I never have to bring up merch again, but it felt too relevant here. I saw Starsky Carr put up a video today where he used an SH-101. I was planning on doing that already. Starsky, I'm not trying to copy you. It just feels so fitting of the era and Roland-esque. But I didn't watch that video because I'm horrified of not having my own opinions. It really scares me to listen to a review or an overview of something that I plan on, putting my opinion out there and accidentally absorbing somebody else's point. So I didn't watch it. I honestly haven't opened the box yet. So you're going to watch me open the box, plug it in, do some first impressions. I'll probably cut at some point, read the manual, see if I missed anything, and come back with a few other synthesizers. So you'll see the SH-101 and then some other Roland stuff in this video. I also plan on doing sounds only with a bunch of Roland gear. So if that's more your speed, you don't want to hear me fucking talk anymore, subscribe, and you can get that later. Okay, I don't have anything else to say. Let us move on to the table. I did not expect a power supply. Literature. Wow. It's kind of smaller than I visualized. Let's get a size reference here. Maybe 3 compact pedals, but it seems like a really comfortable size. What's another good? A little bigger than the Empress Reverb. Everything feels good. Alrighty, here we are. SH-101 is plugged in. This is on mode 1. I'll put everything around the middle here. That sounds quite good. Yeah, that's exactly what I'm talking about. Okay, you'll see me mess with the mode selector, and these lights will tell you which of the tape heads are active. And the way a tape delay works, if you aren't familiar, okay, here's my vintage one. If you look at the top here, you can actually see the tape moving around. If I might have to change some settings that'll make things look weird here. So you can see the tape moving through there, right? It enters here, there's a long loop, and it comes out on this side. It goes around this way. There's just a bunch of folds, a bunch of turns in there. Okay? And it comes through here. Here is our first head. That's where our sound gets recorded to the tape. And then the distance to the next one is the time for our first delay head. So I'm in mode 1 on the 201, or actually mode 1 on the 202. It tells you which head is active, right? That first one. So we record it here, and then we play it back here. So if I... Pretty short, right? If I speed up the tape, it's even shorter. So that's the slowest tape speed now. Right? So this is physically moving slower. So there's more time between these two heads. If I click into the next mode, it's a longer delay time, but I didn't change the motor. That's the next head. And the third. So these are the 3 playback heads of the 201. And this fourth one erases that sound. So you record it, play it back at 1 or some combination of these, and then erase that sound. So by the time the loop comes all the way back around, there isn't anything there already. Cool? And on the 202, you have an additional fourth head. But that's how a fixed head tape delay works. You speed up the motor or slow down the motor, and these are all spaced relative to each other. When we turn up intensity, which is feedback, the signal that we pick up at these playback heads gets fed back and recorded at the beginning again. And we might be able to EQ those repeats in between as well. We can on the Space Echo. And that's the feedback cycle. And when you get that warble, that difference in pitch, that's changing of the speed. So let me try and... If I hit the pinch roller, I can manually slow it down until it stops or goes really, really slow. Right? Because that's all affecting how long it takes the signal to get from our record head to one of our playback heads. There's a crash course. I hope that helps. But our closest head, which is our shortest delay time, is 1. Let's see what the EQ can do. I'm just going to max it out. Darken the repeats like an analog delay might. Try longer delay time on the second head. How about some wow and flutter? Add some high end. It's got a really high wow and flutter. Yeah, I don't know what else to say. This sounds really dope. It's feeding back a little earlier than I would expect, but let's try the aged tape. Is it about the same point? It is about the same point. Nice. Very nice. So let's go back to new, turn on wow and flutter. I haven't listened to the reverb at all. Actually, let's just get the echo volume at 0. Is it time for me to admit that I don't really love the spring reverb in my vintage 201? I don't know if it's too shrill or it would sound better on guitars or whatever. Not affected by the EQ. I don't know if there's hidden menus to give you more decay or anything. But as a space filler, I like that as its own effect. Maybe not the best. But I have only tried it with just this, so who knows? And I'm sure you'll notice repeat rate is sort of obvious. It's not like a time knob where the longer you go, the slower the time is. This is controlling the speed of the motor or how fast the tape is moving around. High wound flutter. You can hear it. Some pitch modulations in there. Cool, let's turn that down and just go to the old tape mode here and see if that adds any warble. Or if that's just an EQ. Might just be an EQ. Yeah, I like that they're on separate controls. Excellent. How about even longer? Less reverb volume. Reverb does work as a good space filler. I'm not loving the reverb on its own. Maybe I'm just being harsh. Maybe I just don't love spring reverb, but that's not hitting quite the way I thought it would. The delay lines, though, are hitting. Let's do some multi-head sounds. Slower rate, higher intensity. Less reverb. Let's make this nice and distinct, huh? More feedback. I immediately think of pads and things getting big and washy with multi-head sounds like this. Let's add some attack and do that. I'm just going to change the guitar input, see if that changes our output level at all. Maybe a little bit of clipping. I'm really not noticing, but there isn't a noticeable volume drop, which I'm quite happy with. Let's try the new tape again. Turn the reverb off separately. Interesting. I like that. A good second use for that pedal. If you aren't familiar with the originals, these mode selectors, they're all 12, but there is only 3 heads in the original, and whether the reverb is on or off is part of those options. So the options you have on the original are 4 of just combinations of the 3 heads, okay, and then 5 through, it would be 11, then 5 through 11 are combinations of the 3 heads plus the reverb, and then there's a mode that's just reverb only. On this, the first 7 are combinations of the first 3 heads. So the first 7 are things you could have gotten on the original. And then the 4th head is new. Can you do just the 4th head? You cannot. I might have liked that, but being able to do just the 3rd head. So this is actually a good example. This is the absolute longest delay you can have. And it's not super long. Unless I'm mistaken, maybe I can tap in something slower. You sure can. I'm glad I checked that. Yeah, that's plenty slow. And I'm really glad I checked that. That's really slow. So knowing that you can tap way slower is really nice. So what aligns with quarter notes on the tap tempo? Is it head 1? Yes, it is. Pardon that aside, back to head 4. Let's go back to the reverb rate here. I would appreciate if the repeat rate was still flashing here, even when it wasn't tapped in. Oh gosh. I realized I hadn't tried twist. That's awesome. So you're like enveloping the right. And warp on the left here. Some extra high feedback. Is that tuned so that it doesn't become unreasonable? It is. I kind of wish Warp was doing that. And not just holding it like at a reasonable place infinitely. If there's a setting to change that, we will find out later. Oh gosh, I'm realizing all these other little features. Saturation. Ooh. That is a lot of drive. I'm going to go back to just, say, the second head. Yeah, I really should have been playing with that a lot more. That affects the character quite a lot. And the volume. You hear that? We'll turn off the reverb here. Let's do 50%. Yeah, I quite like that. That saturation changes a lot. Okay, messing with that saturation and hearing that saturation, that made me really want to bring out my old one. And I don't want to get super bogged down in comparing the sounds of individual repeats. I don't think there's a lot of value in that. If this isn't identical, does that mean it's bad? No, of course not. Plus, how this one sounds is going to be different from any other unit, right? Mine's been serviced, somewhat recently. The tape is, going on 2 years old. There's all these things that go into it sounding the way it does. The specific parts in my specific unit that have fallen out of spec do contribute to its sound, right? It won't sound exactly like any other 201. So why should this sound exactly like my 201? Ergo, it shouldn't, okay? And I've said this 100 times. I'll probably say it again. A lot of the benefit in a modern recreation like this is having the exact same controls available. Does that make sense? I've said it about the Roland Boutique line. And whether the oscillators or the filters sound exactly the same, that's not my problem, and that's not something I'm worried about. But by giving me the exact controls with similar enough range, I will stumble across the same types of sounds. The individual character of a delay, the individual character of an oscillator, talking about the boutiques, doesn't make nearly as much of a difference to the end result as having access to the same parameters in a similar range. And I think that is the big draw of something like this. Is it the only tape delay you can get for synthesizers especially? No, absolutely not. You've seen me use the Strymon Capistan a lot, and I think that's wonderful. But this is the one that's going to, for sure, get you sounds like the Space Echo. The way the signal's routing, the SH101 is going straight into my mixer. That's going equally to 2 different auxiliary sends. Each of those is going to one Space Echo. They're both just sending out the wet signal. On the 201, that's a dummy plug into the From PA jack. On the 202, there's a system setting for it. And I'm going to alternate which one I have muted. See me lean over and do that, okay? So that's one of them. I'm not going to tell you which. This is the other. The first one again. Right now you're listening to the 202. Because it's about getting big, spacey, and ambient, you don't really notice much of a difference. But I notice a different high-end reproduction on the 201 because tape has cool high-end. I'm going to leave the filter all the way open. Make it more percussive. This is the 202. So I think I've gotten them pretty close, but I'll say it again. I don't really want to be doing that. Right? I don't care if these are identical to each other. That's not the point. Let alone how many problems this has. Plus, this cost me, I think, about $700 just to get fixed after I bought it. So, take what you will. That is still the 201. Does that sound like $2,500 and this sound like $400? I sure don't think so. Right? And that's, I know I've said this 100 times, and I don't know which take I'm going to use, but I keep coming into it again. This is cool because it's a piece of history, and I have it, and I appreciate it on that level. It's very important to me that, something that's 40, 50 years old is still usable and still relevant to somebody like me and in music. I think that's wonderful. I think that's beautiful. Does that mean this is bad because it's not old? Hell no. I'm not taking that on stage ever. And now the settings that I like or the configurations that I like are available to me. And I interact with them through the same panel or similar enough panel. And that is all of the value to me. Okay, they both sound good. They both sound like a tape delay. And I'm not going to fixate anymore on things like that. So to compare you, like practically what's different about them, this is the slowest motor speed on the longest tape head. We're going to do a single delay, and you're just hearing the 201. That is the furthest tape head on the slowest motor speed. And this is the 202. And there's a system setting for twice as much time, but this is the slowest sound, so you have a wider range. I got to get about here. Oops. Okay, let's add reverb to that sound. So this is mode 7, because reverb's only on for these half. I almost forgot. Working with the 202, it doesn't work like that. Kind of loud, kind of bright. Over to the 202, which we can stay in the same mode and just bring in the volume here, or we hold that middle foot switch to turn the reverb on and off. Back on the 201. The spring reverb is much higher, like, you know what I'm saying, the point I have to be at to match them. This is the 201 again. Cool. Immediately the mess of a pitch warble that is here on the 201. And I will say, I have way more trouble with the lowest repeat rate in this bottom range of this for as far as wow and flutter. Actually, what am I just trying to turn it up here as well? And this is feeding back. You see where I'm at? I'm like before halfway on the knob, and I already get some pretty bad feedback tails. This is still the 201. What a sound. So the EQ definitely doesn't need to be in the same place. But I know this is probably boost above and cut below, and I don't necessarily want it to do that to every repeat, because there's a reproduction of the high end that I think is really important to the sound of the tape there. And I think leaving it in the new tape setting does a little bit better of a job at that. But that's kind of conjecture, and I'm not really focused on lining that part up okay. Even though that tape is like 2 years old. This is the 202 still. We're over to the 201. Reverb's more overbearing still. How about I pan the RE201 left and the RE202 right? Oh, that's really weird. I'm going to get a shorter, more percussive sound on the 202 here. The reverb's way brighter. there's a bit of my vocal coming through the one of these. How about the 202? Yeah. Okay, sorry about that. Let's clear that buffer. You're still hearing one left and one right. The time is pretty close, but I'm gonna leave. Actually, since I got the time close enough, I'm gonna leave it there and try some of the multi-head settings. But we're back to them being panned in the center, and right now you're just hearing the 202. And I'm going to pull up. I'll have to put this diagram on screen for you guys, if I can find it online as well. But I'm going to go to the multi-head setting for, let's do 1 and 3, which I think is with reverb would be 10. Yes, 10 on the 201. So let's listen first to the 201. Okay, I'm going to slow down everything, but leave me no release as well. This is just the 202. I'm going to turn off the reverb. Just barely slower on the 202. You're hearing the 201 right now. That was the 202. This is the 201. And, I mean, the pitch is varying so much. Okay. So the spacing of the tape heads seems to be correct. Let's listen to all three. I believe that'll be mode 11. Here we are. 202. 201. And no more comparing the nuances. We're just going to listen to the spaciest sound, if you might think of it that way. So this is the longest possible delay time. All three heads are active. Reverb is up. On to the 202. Yeah, you know what? I think that's probably where I'm going to end this segment. All right, let's listen to just feedback out of control. Okay, I think it's going to happen a lot earlier here on the 201. And you know, I don't want to be that guy, but they sound really different. Or do they? Oh. 201. 201 was feeding back before I played any music. There's the wow and flutter really bad. And it like picks that frequency. Oops. This is the 202. Again, like, does it matter that they feed back a little differently? No. I will say the hardest thing to recreate when you're going from analog to digital is the points of failure, is the imperfection. And having that feedback, you know, so dramatically is kind of a lot of that happening at once. So, frankly, I wouldn't expect it to be that close. But it's annoying that it happens so early on the range of this. There you go. I think that's a nice enough aside. You guys will appreciate a lot of the things you heard, okay? I'm going to try and cover up both lenses at the same time. Just kidding. There's no way I can do that. But I'm going to fade to black, and when we return, we'll be with the Juno. The sound cues a little more volume here. Let's turn on our pedal. Yeah. Okay, I got very, very carried away. I played for like 20, 30 minutes just listening to sounds. I really didn't say anything. Not intentionally. So I'll probably put that and a few other synths in a separate video that's just sounds. But I was like, you know what? I wonder how the stereo is working because I don't seem to hear any difference in my left and right. And I'm flipping through the manual. I don't hear any mention of it, or don't see any mention of it. And I learned a few things about other like hidden settings that I do want to talk about. But as far as the stereo, I think it sums everything to mono, and then the effect is actually processing in mono. Except for the reverb seems stereo. I think the reverb's in stereo. But everything else, all the delay effects, are mono, which isn't bad. That's the way the original works. It's just worth noting. I know Strymon Volante has certain modes where different heads will go to the left and right. I think on some of the very dense multi-head sounds, that could be cool. I just said that. I think this mode is. It says Mode 12 differs from the other modes in that the positions of the 4 playback heads are optimized to create a highly dense sound. Do they mean positions relative to each other? So let's try that. I think they might mean in the stereo field, which is funny because I was just talking about that and I didn't mean to come across that. But there's a chance that Mode 12 is the only one with any stereo imaging. I think it is. Let's clip it. Yeah, okay. In what to me is a weird decision, a single mode of the 12 has some stereo imaging. With that in mind, why not let us implement that on the others? We have so many other system settings. Kind of weird, but just to scroll through, it's just this whole section is called various. Can you see that? My phone probably looks like a blinding light. But it just says various settings, and then there's like a page each of setting the foot switch functions. There's a stereo jack in the back that could be 2 control switches or 1 expression pedal. You can turn the direct sound on or off to use this as a send effect. Switching between direct sounds, between analog bypass and RE201 simulation. Let's try that. Let's see what it is by default. Press and hold the tap switch and turn on the power. I believe the only way to turn on the power is just yoinking the sucker. Okay. Press the selector to 9. Okay, cool. 1 is the RE201 simulation. Press the tap switch to exit settings. Cool, so the difference in that mode is in the default, in the analog bypass, the saturation is just on the effects, but you can drive your entire signal when you have it on the RE201 simulation mode. I'm going to leave it on the default because it's quite nice to be able to just character the repeats, but that is cool to know that that's an option. Preserving the tail of an effect. It keeps going, and there's a mode where if you turn it off, it'll stop with your signal. I'm not going to demonstrate that either. Switching between reverb types. RE201 spring, hall, plate, room, or ambience. Let's listen to, I like plate reverbs. Let's do that. Put it on 12. Put it on plate. Reverb all the way up. I like that. I like that way more than spring. That is a reverb I would use on its own, and the spring really wasn't. Let's do ambiance. Let's see how that sounds. I wish that had longer tail. Yeah, I'm going to go back to plate. I quite liked it. That plate reverb helps a lot, even just because the tail's longer than the other ones. I like that. I'm going to leave it there. I was hoping for settings as they relate to warp and twist, and I'm going to search one more time just to see. Yeah, I would have loved controls for, say, the ramp time of twist or the intensity you change to with warp. They're set at reasonable places, but with all this beneath the panel control, I don't know why we can't set the ramp time, or the intensity for either of those. Seems like a miss, because I think of things like the Rubberneck, which has effects like that, and you have control over them, and that's in the analog domain, so I don't think there's any excuse to not have it on something like this. Okay, I've got a pretty good idea of what I'm working with here. So, good things I do like. I like that it looks like a CE1. I think that's really, really classy. Foot switches don't feel great, but they're certainly not bad, and I think they've made good choices as to what the switches do, how long the long presses are, things like that. The knobs all feel good. The detents are good. It's not as satisfying of a click on the mode selector that I would want, but that is a totally inconsequential problem. That's something I should not complain about. I didn't show you guys memory at all, so let me make something really dramatic here. Faster repeat rate. So there we go. How about 2 heads, high intensity, fast rate, no reverb. And to save that to memory, I hold memory to go into the save mode, and I hold memory. I press it until I get to the slot I want, and then I long press it again to save it in that slot. So here's manual. We can change this to wherever. Here's my save slot 1. Here's my save slot 2. That's quick and easy feature we all like. I like the wow and flutter. I think the wow and flutter sounds good. I think saturation sounds good. I like the 2 tape age options. Part of me wishes that were a knob, but I'm not complaining. I'm sure it does more than just an EQ. I'm sure there's more elements of, losing this or that. I don't think the input selection needs to be on the front panel. I think that is the sort of thing that somebody's not going to often change. Unless you're in a studio that, uses this for everything, you'll move back and forth. But I think most likely somebody's going to leave it on one or the other for most of their time with it. So I wish that was one of our system settings that we hold the button for and turn on the power. Instead, we have control of something else, maybe the reverb type. because that's something I would like to change and experiment with more and compare things back and forth when I don't really care to compare back and forth between the guitar and line level inputs. Everything else, wonderful. It sounds good. The options are cool. The addition of a fourth head is interesting. Be it to catch up with all the Echo Rec emulations or not, whatever it is, it's cool. I wish there was options for stereo panning of the individual heads, but sincerely, the sound, the feel, the features, the size is excellent. Speaking very generally, the experience of using this with synthesizers, it's excellent. Being able to preserve your stereo image path is great because ye old Juno chorus can persist through here. I really, really care about hands-on controls, and I get frustrated by things that change their function based on your mode or whatever. So these always being what they say is great. 12 positions on a selector would be intimidating if you didn't have these great displays for what heads you're choosing. It's not like, I don't remember if I liked 11 or 8 for that. You can see what the heads are and know that you're going to hear those tape heads. I think that's great and matters a lot to people like me. I like that for the most part. Everything I want to get to and experiment with is hands-on, with the exception of the reverb modes, but at this point, I don't think I'm going to change off of plate very much. So, okay, to conclude, will this actually replace my vintage Space Echo? Will I stop using the 201 entirely now that I have this? No, probably not. I haven't used this because it's a piece of history, and that's important to me. And just because the 202 doesn't mean it's bad, but it's different. And what this lets me do is I can take this and put on the same settings I had, a day ago down here with the old guy and play it on stage and not worry about that breaking down or failing or having, an unappealing pitch warble in the middle of a place where I really would rather it have not. And again, my talk about vintage and their modern reproductions, nobody is sitting down and saying, well, I need a Space Echo and it has to be a Space Echo. So I can pay $250 or $400 or $2,000. And I'm only going to get the one that sounds the best. That's not true. No real-life buying scenario is like that. Right? Your decision's going to be made primarily on budget, and then beyond that, what's important to you. If you care about having a vintage one, and that's the only way you'll be satisfied, well, you've only got one option, don't you? But otherwise, this is doing the job for me. Okay. I'm going to turn on both of these. I'm going to pan them left and right. I ended up liking that sound, and that's how I'm going to take us out. I'm going to let them both feedback. Thanks for watching. My name's Jorb. I love gear. I love Space Echoes, new and old. Cheers and so long.